Good afternoon. My name is Elson Kaka from ES Kaka Tennis. Today we have a very special guest, advocate. I'm not going to say his name. It's a big surprise. He's one of the best advocates in the Republic of South Africa and Africa. He got so much experience. We are going to enjoy it. I'm going to ask him a few questions. Advocate, welcome to ES Kaka Tennis.
Thanks. I think as we have not indicated my name, I must just introduce to the viewers or to the followers that my name is Advocate Makomo Robeni. I'm practicing as an advocate in the Embedded Tambo BJ Chambers in Pretoria.
Yes, thank you very, very much, Advocate. What I quickly wanted to check with you as well. I've read lots of your cases where you were an advocate, very, very controversial cases, very, very cases where I can proudly say that it was a law development where you have developed the law. Because viewers, I think you know very well that the law is only being developed at the High Court of the Republic or the Constitutional Court or at the Supreme Court of Appeal. Advocate has done all that. I want him to quickly just give us his background, where he started, where he studied, etc., etc. Thank you, Advocate.
All right, thanks. Perhaps if I can just give the educational background. I did my junior degree at the University of Venda where I obtained an LLB degree. And after completing the LLB degree, then I went to save the articles at Mohali Incorporated Attorneys. But because now I'm addressing you on my educational background, I want to say that there was a little bit of a break after having completed my LLB degree. I went to practice from there. I went to work in a public institution for a very long time, which I'm going to explain later. But following that, I then obtained a master's specializing in mercantile law at the University of Pretoria, where I did coursework which uh, contained quite a number of courses like credit law, contract law, cyber law, and tax law, as well as the contract law. So after completing my master's at the University of Pretoria, I also completed a legislative drafting course at the University of Pretoria. It was just a postgraduate qualification that I obtained there as well. And then again, I obtained uh, some short courses relating to air law, space law, and telecommunications law at the University of Pretoria. I then went to study for postgraduate qualification at VETS, where I completed a competition law certificate course. Subsequent thereto, I then registered a course um, with Cullen International University in Brussels, where the course was specifically based on the telecommunication regulations and competition law. The course was offered by Cullen International University at Brussels. I also completed a advanced competition law certificate course offered by College of Europe in Brugge, in Europe as well. So there are quite a number of qualifications that I've attained, postgraduate qualifications. I'm not going to give you all of them because then it's going to take much of our time. That's in short my educational background. But in terms of my experience, as I've indicated earlier, I've worked at Mohali Incorporated Attorneys, where I was practicing in a private law firm. And subsequent thereto, then I went to work at the competition authorities for almost 16 years, having occupied quite a number of positions up until I left, where I was holding executive positions there as a principal investigator. I worked in LSD for Legal Service Division for 10 years and some months. And I worked at Enforcement and Exemption Division for quite a number of years. And I also worked in Cartels Division. So I've done quite a lot in competition law, basically. So after that, I then left to open my practice at Limbete Tabo BJ Chambers. That's exactly where I'm based. And I've been in practice for almost 2 years now.
Yo, thank you so, so much. You can see the CV is very, very long, and he was going to tell us more about his more advanced courses that he went through. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in and for listening to this. So, today's topic, we're going to focus now on the law of competition. What is the law of competition, Cancer? Especially for an ordinary South African, I want you to answer me, not answer to your colleague and an attorney, but to ordinary citizen of South Africa.
Well, I think just to simplify it, competition law, it's a combination of economics and law. It seeks to regulate the conduct of the participant in the market. Basically, the companies that are running businesses in this country, they are required to comply with certain provisions of the Competition Act in order to level the playing fields. So, in a nutshell, competition law it seeks to regulate the manner in which these companies must conduct themselves so that they cannot actually use their powers to disadvantage others or otherwise to make things difficult for the consumers in the market. So I think just to try and give a brief synopsis of what the Competition Act seeks to achieve is to provide consumers with competitive prices and product choices. In essence, what it entails is that the consumers should have an opportunity to choose different prices that may be the same but differs in terms of the quality. And they can also choose from which supplier or from which shop they would want to buy. So, in a way, the Competition Act seeks to make sure that it creates opportunities for these consumers to get quality products at cheaper prices. For example, you might get Mercedes Benz sold in Northcliffe in Johannesburg, in Mercedes Benz in Johannesburg, and you will find the same is maybe it's Mercedes Benz AMG. And then if you look at the same brand and model and the quality, it's exactly the same as the Mercedes Benz that is being sold at Wonderboom. But because it's not one company that is selling Mercedes Benz, you are able to get product choices with competitive prices, meaning that you can get a cheaper price for the same product that would have gotten in a different supplier at a higher price. So that is number one. Number two, it seeks to create opportunities for small business to enter into the market. Historically disadvantaged individuals were unable to enter into the market because the market was predominantly uh, dominated by the white elite group. It was just like the big companies were predominantly owned by white people. So this act now creates opportunities for black people to enter into the market and participate and become competitive. Thirdly, it creates opportunities for employment. It creates opportunities for employment. That is basically what the Competition Act seeks to achieve. But the other critical important aspect of the Competition Act is the driving force towards the attainment of the economic and emancipation in the country. It is used as a yardstick to develop the economy of this country. So I wouldn't want to take you through all of these issues, but in a nutshell, there are many advantages and opportunities that one can get from the Competition Act. I can give an example of one incident that many people may be aware of. You may have noticed that some years back there was a collusion in the bread cut. We call it a bread cartel, where the bakeries or the companies that were selling bread colluded and agreed on what price to charge for a loaf of bread. Now, without the Competition Act, then those companies would still be charging a lot of money for bread now. And the consumers, especially the most disadvantaged one, the poorest of the poor, wouldn't afford to buy a loaf of bread. I'm talking about companies like Tiger Brand, which was fined a lot of money by the Competition Commission for having contravened Section 41B, one of the Act, by fixing the prices of bread. Then the second one was Pioneer Foods, which was also found to have actually contravenes Section 41D1 of the Act. So the Competition Policy and the Competition Act's intervention has actually helped to ensure that no unscrupulous companies will take advantage of the customers and inflate the prices to such an extent that they can maximize profit at the expense of the poor or people that need to get reasonable prices that will accord with the product that they are buying. So then the other issue, if I can just perhaps let me just explain in detail how this Competition Act regulates the market and how the act is being enforced. There are three instances where the Competition Act can be enforced. There's just Part A that deals with restrictive horizontal practices. Then you would find the second one, which is Part B, that deals with what we call the abuse of dominance. Then the third part is the exemptions. If you can check, I can try to be specific, that you will find exemptions that I will explain later what I mean by the exemptions. They are dealt with in Part C. But these are the three important tools that the Commission used to regulate the market. But in addition to that, there's also a major control and major regulations, which is also very important. And that one, it is actually done in Chapter 3. And I will explain what we mean by a merger and why we think the mergers are very important in the country and what are the greater benefits that one would get through the merger transactions. But before I can deal with that, let me just go back to the Part A that I've previously explained about, that it is a restrictive horizontal practice and how it is enforced and where one can see that there is a problem of competition by the industry participant that may warrant a complaint to be lodged at the competition authorities in South Africa. Now, if you look at Part A, which deals with restrictive horizontal practice, we have got Section 4(1) that says that an agreement between or a concerted practice by firms or a decision by an association of firms is prohibited if it is between parties in a horizontal relationship and if it has the effect of substantially preventing or lessening competition in a market, unless a party to the agreement, concerted or decision can prove that any technological efficiency or other competitive gains resulting from it outweighs the effect. Now, in these instances, that is an agreement between an agreement or a concerted practice by a firm or a decision by an association of firm, which might ultimately lead to lessening or preventing competition. In what sense? I can just give a simple example, but before that, I need to explain that this contravention of Section 4(1)A it's called a per se contravention, meaning that it is based on rule of reason. What needs to be done is to strike a balance between the conduct that is perceived to be in contravention of the act against the benefits that outweighs that particular contravention of the act. For example, if there are two companies that are in the market and they realize that, I can just give a simple example, that we want to establish, there are airlines that we know in South Africa that are operating the business, like SAA, Mango, Kulula, and so forth. So then there are certain routes that, for example, if I want to fly to USA, I cannot just fly from Wonderboom Airport. So you need to go to OR Town, is the international airport, or Cape Town.
Yes.
So then you may find that there are other routes that are traveled by the local travelers through flights. I want to go to Bloemfontein, but I am based in Bronkhorstspruit. If you check in Bronkhorstspruit, there's no airport. But okay, I can give a simple example to say that I can say I want to go to Northwest. Then I go to Vunerboom Airport.
Yes.
And when I check there, I can't find a flight that will take me from Vunerboom to Northwest. If I want to do that, I must go to Lanseria Airport, or I must just go to OR Tambo. When I'm staying in Pretoria North, it just really doesn't make sense. So it is difficult. If there are companies, for example, Kulula and Mango, they are competing airline companies, and they realize that there's no road from Vunerboom to Northwest Mabat. And then they decide that no, you know what, we are competitors, but there are no roads here. We need to get the road there. So then now they invest. They don't have money to go and buy space there and make sure that they put infrastructure development there, where the flights can land and where the flights can take off. So they decide that no, because we don't have budget, but there's a lucrative market. There are many people that are going to Northwest and coming to Pretoria, and they would want to use Vunerboom because it's very convenient for them to come here rather than to go to Joburg. They don't even want to have traffic from Joburg to Pretoria. So then they decide that no, okay, we are going to buy space there and we are going to open road there. And to open road there, AXA want 15 million rands. And then to do infrastructure development there, they need 5 billion rands. So obviously they must draw a business plan and make sure that they engage the relevant stakeholders for them to kickstart the thing. They say, but because we don't have money, let's do a joint venture so that we can be able to afford the money to open the road to go to Northwest through Vunerboom Airport.
Yes, correct.
Now, when they do that, remember I said it's Kulula and Mango.
Yes.
They spend millions of rands there. They do infrastructure development. After a year, they roll out the project. They start taking the passengers to Northwest, from Northwest to from Mafeking to Northwest, things like that.
Yes.
So when they do that, the market becomes more lucrative. There's SAA, there's British Airways, there are Airlink of this world and so forth. Now, because they compete with them in the local market, they realize that no, man, these guys are making a lot of money. And we need to enter the market.
Yes.
So when they enter the market, they go there. Those ones, Kulula and Mango, they say, you cannot use this route because it's ours. It's our infrastructure. They say, no, these guys are competing. They've done a route and then it's a market allocation, or otherwise it's a foreclosure. It's an agreement to lessen or to prevent competition. They're saying, no, it's section 41A. We are competitors in the market for provision of transportation, airline transportation in different roads. But for this one, we concluded a joint venture so that we can afford to do the infrastructure. So now you look at the benefit against the lessening and prevention of competition. There are many people who are going to Northwest very easy. There are people from Northwest to Pretoria through Vunerboom Airport. Those are pro-competitive gains that the consumers will get from these companies because nobody wanted to take a risk to invest in that route. So then you can't say that they're colluding.
That's correct.
Because it's difficult. That is why the route was not even prioritized by any airlines locally. So these ones are taking a risk, and it's an investment that they can do it and not get the investment returns. Now, when they get those investment returns, you come, I'm earning, I want to get in there. Why didn't you do that? And then we look at the consumer benefits. The consumers are benefiting. That's basically what the Competition Act wants to address.
Oh, yeah.
So we outweigh the anti-competitive effects against the pro-competitive gains. Now, we move on to section 4.1b. That says that it's an agreement between or a concerted practice by firms or a decision by an association of firms is prohibited if it is between parties in a horizontal relationship and if it involves any of the following restrictive horizontal practices. Number one, It's section 41B1. It says directly or indirectly fixing a price purchase or selling price or any other trading conditions.
So what you mean is the companies must not fix the prices. They cannot say this is the live boy, we must sell it for 20 rands, and Pick n Pay must also sell it for 20 rands. They cannot fix the price.
Exactly.
Or they must compete.
They must compete. They must put the prices that are not the same.
wow.
The consumer can say live boy at Pick n Pay is 12 rand,
Mm.
but live boy at Spar is 15 rand, and live boy at Spar is 10 rand, and then live boy at Marava Start
Mm.
is 7 rand.
Okay.
Now you will find the same live boy from different retailers or shops
Mm.
at a reasonable price.
Well,
So
that's-
if they
that's-
meet these guys like Pick n Pay, Shoprite, Spar, and
they
Woolworths
agree with
and
one
agree
price.
with one price,
Okay.
it's a contravention of the act because they are in the supermarket.
That is prohibited.
There are supermarkets who are operating in the horizontal level in the same line of business.
So they must compete.
They must compete.
Okay, that's good. That's very excellent.
Yes.
As you can see that our advocate have lots to offer, but we'll give him an opportunity to continue. I don't want to interrupt him because knowledge is power, and people they say there's a saying that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. So we can continue our counsel so that we can have more knowledge on this subject.
Thanks. I think your intervention is also important because it seeks to give clarity. What is important, as you have indicated, is to make sure that the consumers knows how they can benefit from competition law and things like that. So now, if you look at section 41B2, as I said, it says if the conduct by the competing firms which are in a horizontal relationship, if I can just put it, let me just it says the agreement, if the agreement involves any of the following restrictive horizontal practices. Section 41B2 says dividing markets by allocating customers, suppliers, territories, or specific types of goods or services. Now, on this one, you'll find that I can give a simple example. Lafarge is a cement manufacturer, and then we've got PPC, Pretoria Portland Cement, that is based in Pretoria West. It's a manufacturer of cement.
Yes.
We've got Sipaku, which is based around Centurion. It's a supplier of cement.
As well, yes.
We've got so many cement companies that are there in South Africa. Now they are competing. If these companies agrees, sit around as competitors and say, you know what, this thing of us competing for the same customers in the same area is killing us. We need to sit around and maximize prices. And how do we do that? You, Lafarge, your road is to go and supply your cement, these supermarkets, all of them in Centurion. Nobody should supply cement in Centurion.
Only you.
Only you. So we are allocating a market in the product. Then now, we're not PPC, Mamelodi Swap Township. Every hardware in Mamelodi and Equestria, you are the only person who supply it. And then Sipaku, we are giving you Arangua, breads, as well as Soshanguve and places such as Wonder Park. Then when PPC, then we will allocate you Attersville, Lodium, and all those places. Now, when you go to Lodium, you only find PPC cement. You can't find any other cement. So it would mean that these companies would have divided the market by allocating customers, suppliers, territories, or specific type of goods. You can't get to supply there. It's only there.
It's only there, yes.
Yeah. So that is a contravention of the act because you need competition. All of them must compete. When you go to Mamelodi, you must find this Lafarge, PPC, and then Sipaku, every cement you can get. Then you can exercise your consumer. You exercise what you call competitive consumers, competitive prices, and product choice.
Wow.
These are competitive prices. These cements are of almost the same in terms of the quality. But then this one, product price on Kenyan, product choice, I choose PPC instead of Sipaku. So market allocation, once they meet, is a contribution of Section 1B to the end. Now we go to the third one, which is Section 41B3. It's collusive tendering. So collusive tendering is where the competing firms sit together to discuss the tender and bid for the very same tender. Now you would find that there's what we call bid rotation, bid separation, and bid rotation, bid separation, complementary bids. So there are three forms of collusive tendering that will fall under Section 41B3. So you find that bid separation, what we do, we make sure that we put the prices that are high. We agree now. We put the prices that are too high to be accepted. Then it's Kaga, Pty Ltd, Queen Pty Ltd, John Pty Ltd. Now we want to bid for the very same tender. Maybe it's a government tender for the distribution and the supply of vaccines for COVID-19.
Yes. Right.
Then we agree that to the transportation and storage. For storage, I'll need this man. For transportation, I'll need this man. Then Kaga Pty Ltd and Queen Pty Ltd agrees that our prices will be exponentially high to such an extent that it will not be accepted. Then my prices as Mwabu Pty Ltd will go closer to that but high. So because we are the main suppliers of those products in the country, there's no way government is forced to go to the lowest one. And the difference is 5%. But already we could have charged lower, but because we're the only ones, the government will perceive Kaga Pty Ltd and Queen Pty Ltd as the most expensive ones. And they come to us, to me, Mwabu Pty Ltd, while it is very expensive as well. So when they come here, so it's bid separation. So obviously it means that the price, the bid will be given to me. I can even make what? After they awarded me a tender, you are going to subcontract the three of you.
Oh, that's the
They won't need. There's an agreement between us. We benefit from the same tender because we've actually raised prices. That is the. Then now, bid rotation, we agree again. When we put up the prices here, we make sure that the price that they're going to take, it will be for you this year. Because of the pricing that we're going to put. And then it will not be for him. The next tender is going to be her. The next tender is going to be me. But when we do that, we make sure that when they give you a tender, I'm going to subcontract beyond closed doors. We're ripping off the government.
Pre-arrangement.
Yeah. So then those are the kinds of the things that we do. Some of the things you find that the companies, then they share the bid documents. And then so that they can help each other to price and all that. So that is in contravention of the act. They must not discuss the tender.
Yes. So an ordinary South African, if he suspects that these things are happening, he can come to an attorney or he can directly come to us. We'll be able to assist.
Yes, an ordinary person or a company. Remember the Competition Act. There are small companies that are also suffering a serious as a result of the conduct of the big companies who wants to exit them from the market. So we would welcome the ordinary citizens to lodge a complaint. They can come to Kaga attorneys or they can come to Advocate Mropeni. Then Kaga attorneys and Advocate Mropeni will help work together to ensure that we lodge a very sustainable complaint before the competent authorities and help the client to ensure that that matter is properly prosecuted before the competent authorities. So that's basically what would normally happen.
Okay. So
then the big companies as well, they can also approach us.
Okay.
And we can advise them how they can actually deal with this matter in order to ensure that the Competition Act is enforced and those that are on the wrong side of the law are forced to comply with the provisions of the Competition Act.
So that simply means that if you are ordinary South Africans want to enter into the market, the big boys are closing the market, there is a remedy that you can use.
Yes.
The doors are open now. You can approach an attorney, any attorney, but we also specialize on the law of competition. It's more advisable that you can approach us at our website, also give you the telephone number of Advocate Mropeni at the end of the program. But I want him to continue again with where he is because I think you are on part C now.
No, I'm going to Section 5. I'm going to wrap it up. So then Section 5 is a restrictive vertical practice which is prohibited. Then, if I can explain it, it says an agreement between parties in a vertical relationship is prohibited if it has the effect of substantially preventing or lessening competition in a market, unless a party to the agreement can prove that any technological efficiency or other competitive gains resulting from that agreement outweighs that effect. That's why you find Section 5, subsection 2, that is the practice of minimum resale price maintenance. So the practice of minimum resale price maintenance is prohibited, but there's an exception from the rule. You will find in section 5, subsection 3, where it says, despite subsection 2, a supplier or a producer may recommend a minimum resale price to the reseller of a good or service, provided the supplier or producer makes it clear to the reseller that the recommendation is not binding, and if the product has its price stated on it, the words recommended price appears next to the price. So basically, if, for example, you are manufacturers of pet food, now when you sell as a manufacturer of pet food, so you put, remember you are a manufacturer, but they are supplier of pet food that will come and buy the pet food from your company so that they can be able to sell. Let's say maybe you are Royal Canin. So you can actually sell to ShopRite, you can sell to this specialized pet store. Your Royal Canin product is for the pet food like cats, dogs, and all that. Now, if you were to charge the price for 2 kg of Royal Canin pet food by 40 rand per kg for 2 kg, when you sell it to the retailers or to specialized pet food stores, then you can say, because I'm charging 40 rand, I've got a recommended resale price that you can, which is 10%. So it means then you're going to add 10% to 40 rands, or you can add 5% or 6 rand. So I'm selling to you by 40 rand, but I know you need to add markup.
Yes.
So the markup, I'm saying don't exceed 10%. But if I say don't exceed and leave it there, it's a prohibited minimum resale price. What I need to say is that you can put 10%, but it's non-binding. So if it's not binding, it's a difference. That's why on the product you must say 2 kg pet food is 40 rand, and then recommended price is 10%, but not binding. So if you are saying binding, you are just fixing the price. There will be no competition. That's where the problem is going to arise.
So you must not say it's binding.
No, don't say that.
You must leave it open.
Leave it open. They can play around. They can increase the price. They can lower the price. You can play around that recommended sale price, as long as it says it's not binding. So that's basically part A. So if I can just go to,
so today we have done
part A. Yes.
So what I would suggest, maybe in the future, if the advocate is available, we'll do part B and part C.
And from there we'll deal with measures.
With the measures as
well.
Yes. I wanted to maybe just to conclude on monopoly. I hear people talk about monopoly. What is the monopoly? Is it also regulated by law of competition?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the part B that we're going to deal with for abuse of dominance. I can give an example. Yes. Telkom is dominant in the market for the supply of fixed line services. It's a monopoly company, because for you to get fixed line services, you have to go to Telkom.
So if it's the newcomer who want to enter into that space, what is it that you need to do? Because you find that now this is a monopoly, you have closed it, and also want to enter into the market. What will be his,
so if you want to enter into a market, let's say, for example, I was giving an example of Telkom, which is a fixed line service provider, which is a dominant firm in the market for the provision and supply of telecommunication fixed line services.
Yes.
All ISP companies, before the license conversions and the rollout of the infrastructure facilities by MTN, Vodacom, Neotel, Seacom, and many others.
Yes.
What would happen is that for you to operate an internet service provider, you definitely need to connect to fixed line services. So you wouldn't go to anywhere else, because I think Neltel was formed around 2007,
Yes.
and Seacom and other things came later. So then now Telkom was the main dominant company that was providing fixed line services. Now, if you want to enter the market to provide ISPs, you want to sell internet services, you want to do connectivity to many companies, you give them licenses, they can use your network to connect their computers in the offices and everywhere, schools and so forth. And when you want to enter the market and you go to Telkom, and say, I need to connect, tell me how much you're going to charge for this particular kind of services. But I'm going to be operating in the cities, and I'm going to roll out later on to join in the rural towns and all that. If Telkom refuses to give you that essential facility, then it becomes a problem because it's dominant. So that's what I'm going to deal in terms of Section 8, what. So there are many things that are going to unfold when we deal with that. So there's a refusal to supply, excessive pricing, and then exclusionary conduct, all those kind of things I'm going to deal with them. There's also something around the price fixing that I'm going to discuss. I mean, the price discrimination, which is done by dominant firms as well. It's going to be done in terms of Section 9. So I'll deal with that. So in when I deal with part B, then I think you are right. We'll also deal with the exemptions later. Then we'll deal with the measures and why we think the measure control and regulation is important in this country, and what are the greater benefits arising from that in the business spectrum and also in government perspective as well as in the consumer perspective.
What my last question is, I've got so many questions. I did not know that the law of competition have so many things that you can benefit. I also learned that it's the one that really activate the economy. And
Yes.
also those that has been many years has been disadvantaged can now enter the market because they are protected in terms of the law of competition. My last
Yes.
question, Council, is that I've noticed when I go to the mall, the shops now, the price of ginger and the price of garlic, they are very high. Okay, if an ordinary citizen, what is it that I can do to make sure that the price also is the correct price? Like I used to buy 1 kg of the ginger for a certain amount. Now suddenly it's not just triple, it's more than ever before. What is that one can do?
Very deplorable, Mr. Kaka. This is quite disappointing while we are fighting this COVID-19 pandemic, and people are using that as an advantage to actually make life difficult for the ordinary people and everybody else. I think that in that case, what you need to do is that if you want to collect evidence before you lodge a complaint, you go to Pick n Pay or Woolworths and you go and buy. If you used to buy a ginger for 1 kg at 70 rand and you still have those receipts, and you can go back again and buy 1 kg of ginger where you find that it's 400 rands in the space of less than 6 months. So you get those receipts, because those receipts, remember, there's a footprint there. They will be there. So, and they will reflect the company. So you can carry those things, and then if you are an ordinary client, you can come to us, and then we can lodge a complaint on your behalf at the competent authorities. Or if you want, you can go to the competent authorities yourself and lodge a complaint. But the advantage with us is that while the commission can do screening and all that, we can also do screening and see what needs to happen and how we can actually craft a complaint on your behalf. There are many companies that are lodging complaints on behalf of the clients in Santen. Then there's nothing that inhibits us from doing the same. For as long as you want the best legal service, you want to ensure that you are not lodging the complaint which will not go anywhere. We are the right people to contact.
Sure. Thank you very much, Advocate. Maybe your last word before I conclude. I'm very educated today, as they correctly said that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. I think Advocate have really empowered us. I'm more empowered. I don't know about you, and you are more than welcome to contact and counsel directly. He will also provide his contact details. Our contact details, you can contact us at 082 7150714, or you can email us at eskakatennis or elson@eskakatennis.co.za or admin@kaka.co.za. Admin@kaka.co.za. My apology. Advocate, your last word.
All right, thanks, Mr. Kaka. I think before I can give the viewers and the potential clients my contact details, I need to briefly explain that whilst we have dealt with part A, you don't have to wait until we do the second round of our interview. If you want to lodge a complaint under part B for excessive pricing or refusal to deal in terms of Section 8 of the Competition Act or exclusionary conduct, which is an abuse of dominance conduct, or price discrimination in terms of Section 9 of the Competition Act, if you think you have been discriminated against by other suppliers and all that, you can contact us so that we can be able to formulate a very proper and a detailed complaint for abuse of dominance. The same way we can formulate a complaint for restrictive horizontal practices in terms of Section 4(1) of the Competition Act and the restrictive vertical practice under Section 5, which deals with minimum resale price maintenance. And again, you don't have to hesitate to engage us to come and help you. If you think you have contravened Section 4 of the Competition Act and there was no reason that could have been avoided, you can be an industry association or you can be an ordinary player in the market. You can approach us to determine whether or not we can apply for exemption before the Competition Act. We can do that exemption working very closely with CAGA attorneys and advocate Mwagumu Ropeni. And then the other thing that we can also do for you is if you want to actually lodge, a complaint for breach of the major conditions, we can assist you to make sure that your interests are addressed by applying for revocation of the merger in terms of the Act. Then the second issue that we can also do is that if you want to prohibit the transaction which you think will have an adverse effect in the market or will lessen or prevent competition in the market, we are here to help you to draft submissions to the competition authorities to object for that transaction to go through. Or if you want to lodge a merger, file a merger before the competition authorities, we are the right people to contact. We can help you to then do merger filing and make sure that we defend that and work with the competition authority up until the transaction is approved. And then the third issue again is on the part of the trade unions. If the trade unions want to make a representation in terms of Section 13 capital A of the Competition Act right together with Section 37, Rule 37 of the Competition Rules, they are entitled to approach CAGA attorneys and advocate Mwagumu Ropeni, because there's a partnership that we are establishing and we've been working like this over time. So then we can be able to ensure that we draft a very substantial submission on behalf of the trade unions before the competition tribunal. And we've got the advantage of having the right of appearance up until the Constitutional Court. So if you come to us, then you are sorted. We've got counsel and the reputable law firm that can help you to do all these matters. So I think in a nutshell, that's what I can try to urge our potential clients or any other person that might need to understand how we work, that these are the areas that we'll cover in addition to what we're doing. But just to get the contact or to give you the contact, my contact is 082 307 2387. My email address is mwagu@advmwagumuropeni.co.za. And my business address is 905 Corner Stanza Babe and Oriente at Limbede Tambo BJ Chambers in Pretoria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council. Thank you very much, viewers. Remember, next week, again, same time, same place, let us combine together. What is going to happen next week, we'll do live at Council so that we can have an interaction. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much.